we've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
This is Silver and Black Tonight on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
It's Tuesday night. That means it's time for Silver and Black Tonight. Week 17 edition. That's right. The season is over for the now, I'm going to call them Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
They played their last game as the Oakland Raiders on Sunday in a 16-15, a painful 16-15 loss to the Broncos in Denver. Good evening, everybody. I am Scott Gobranson, joined, as always, by Chaz Osborne, and we're going to talk about Sunday's game, talk about a little bit of the season. We'll hear from Coach Gruden from his post-game press conference. We'll also hear from Derek Carr as we discuss him a little bit after the first break. But want to jump right in, Chaz, because this game, there were so many things that happened in this game. First of all, I want to start with a really good positive because, you know, there's people can find negatives of the loss, going out, finishing the season 1-5 and over the last 6 and all that. But the defense got better the last 3 weeks of the season. Mm-hmm. And this game against Denver, I mean, if you look at it, Chaz, they hold Denver to 16 points. Not that Denver is a scoring juggernaut.
Right.
But it's a road conference game, division game against one of your most heated rivals.
In cold weather.
In cold weather. And Chaz, I was proud of that defense. They really stepped up and kept the game close throughout.
I guess, that was the best possible ending, right? The Raiders showed fight, but, they didn't lose their draft spot. So that, I always want to win. I disagree with the whole tanking and all this other thing. If you're building and you're building for the future and you're building with your foundation, you want to win games. You don't want to go into the offseason with a 6-game losing skid. So I was glad to see they beat the Chargers last week. And then, they had a great opportunity this week. They fought hard. Like you said, the defense, again, Max Crosby was everywhere to start the game. Unfortunately, Carr and Renfro didn't have that connection to start the game. Obviously, they did at the end. But they battled till the end, and that's really what you want to see with this team. They never give up the fight.
That's right. You talked about Max Crosby, 4 tackles on the day, a sack and a half, as well as 1 quarterback hit and 2 batted passes. So Max Crosby, the defensive story of the year.
Yeah.
There's no question. 4th-round draft pick out of Eastern Michigan, does an amazing job. And I just thought that the defense yesterday, because, again, the Raiders' offense had trouble scoring. They didn't have trouble moving the ball. There's a difference, folks. They didn't have trouble moving the ball early on.
Yep.
You talked about Carr missing Renfro in the end zone, which is exactly what it was. It was just a miss. Mm-hmm. So they moved on from that, and they were able to score. But we get to the third quarter again, and they weren't able to do it. They were not able to score in the third quarter yet again.
Yep.
It's painful to watch
one of those weird things for the season. That's something to work on in the offseason.
It is. And we're going to go now. We're going to hear from Gruden because after the game, Chaz, Coach Gruden they specifically asked him about the offense. Mm-hmm. And so here's what he said post-game.
It was just terrible. We had a great opening drive. I thought we had Renfro wide open for a look. We didn't convert that, and then we missed a short field goal. And then we had a touchdown to Renfro called back by our friend in New York, and then I thought we scored. I thought we were in on Ingles' play, so that's a zilch. And then we had a drive where we settled for a field goal. But a good defensive team. Fangio's good. They got good players. But we left a lot out there. There were plays to be made. We didn't make them, and it comes back to me.
Yeah, so again, to your point, for me, there's 3 major headlines that define this season: the penalties, injuries, and finishing drives with points. That's exactly what you're talking about. And in Sunday's game, all 3 of those flaws were on display, unfortunately.
There's no question that all 3 of those, Chaz, played a part in how their season unfolded. There's no question.
Yeah.
But tell me how injuries impacted the game yesterday.
Well, you have a lesser talent. You're missing guys.
Where? On offense?
On defense.
Defense did well.
Well,
the offense is the one that laid the egg.
The offensive line.
So that's my point. Is
the offensive line was missing some guys there too.
Yeah, Trent Brown, right? No,
and
Richie Incognito was out. So here's the deal, though. They did not play poorly on defense, which is where they have the most injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, and again, I think Coach Gruden, injuries are part of the game, and yes, they've been decimated in certain positions. There's no question, but I thought, and I do think still, that it's been used too much as an excuse because a lot of what happened yesterday didn't happen because you didn't have a guy there. It didn't because a starter was out. They've been going with some of this ragtag look for a while, and they played really well yesterday on that. But no denying that it is a part of the story for the season. I just think offensively, again, they move the ball, can't finish. Right?
Well, yeah, no, I agree with you, and it's been one of the headlines. All season from start to finish, that was, I went back and I listened to a lot of the old press conferences, and that was one of the things that Gruden talked about was, and the same thing with Carr, we're just inability to finish drives, and it's something they're going to work on. Now, obviously, I'm not making excuses with injuries or a number one or a number two wide receiver, things like that. Because they did a lot of great things. We saw the offensive line; they were second or third in the league at one point.
Yep.
And then the defensive line, they were fifth or sixth in the run defense at one point. So there's been a lot of ups, there's been a lot of downs, and it's just one of those seasons. When we talked about the beginning of the season as a rebuild as a whole, and working on certain things, you saw progress in all areas, and it's the main goal going forward.
Well, I think so. I mean, and that's what I made that point after the game, and it's very important, Chaz. And I know fans are disappointed when you lose and you had that bad tail end of the season and you don't make the playoffs, even though I had no expectation that'd be anywhere near the playoffs, by the way.
Right.
So that was a surprise. But you look at the progress made with the team, to your point, about a rebuild, about trying to – there's only 7 players on this roster from before when John Gruden got there.
Right.
So to me, yes, significant progress. And fans should feel good about that because as I said at the beginning of the season – all right? You were tearing it down to build it the right way.
Yes.
Not just to rebuild it, but build it the right way.
Yep. Gruden said that in his press conference on Sunday. He was proud of the development and the effort, from these guys, and that really the focus of the season was developing the young players, gaining experience, establishing a winning culture that will be sustainable, like you just said.
Exactly.
Developing chemistry, and you can see that the progress from year 1 to year 2 already.
Now, there's a lot of our listeners out there who are angry about one thing or another are probably going to be, these guys are glossing over. Well, let's talk a little bit. We'll start to lead the discussion into the most divisive conversation of all when it comes to the Raiders this year, and that, of course, is Derek Carr. Derek Carr finished the day 29 of 46, 391 yards, just 1 touchdown, 97.3 rating for Derek Carr. Darren Waller, 6 receptions, 101 yards. By the way, 5 of those receptions in the first half.
Yeah.
When they weren't doubling him, and then they figured it out, and then Renfro came on and had 6 catches for
but
102
you
yards.
Give Carr credit for recognizing that and shifting it.
Well, he had no choice. But good point. So Derek Carr, again, is part of the conversation, and we're going to talk more about it after the break. But I want to get this in from Coach Gruden, because after the game, of course, because the offense sputtered, and again, it's not all because of Derek Carr, and it's not all his fault, but that's where people go. And so the reporters asked Gruden about Derek Carr's performance.
A little bit, yep, a little bit. I give him credit for hanging in there. Had a couple nice drives at the end, and obviously the intentional grounding penalty hurt us on one drive, but he moved the ball, made some really good plays.
It does sound like Coach is giving Derek Carr backhanded compliments a lot of the times, right? A lot of the time.
That was less than enthusiastic.
But I think that's his way of feeding Carr's hunger, and like I said, I went back and listened to a lot of the Gruden pressers, and from the beginning of the season, he was always supportive of Derek Carr. You've never heard him say, otherwise. And look, Derek Carr ended up with the 4,000 yards, like we talked about, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 70% completion rate with a 100 passer rating, which all numbers are up from last season and comparable with that 2016 MVP season. So I really don't see where the argument is. I understand, the scoring, not finishing drives with points, and obviously the wins and losses is glaring. But as Carr, as a player, I thought he was right on pace, if not even a little bit better.
Wow. You might be.
I know I'm in the minority for sure.
No, not the minority. I think you're in that camp. Although you're not. You also are critical when you feel like you need to be, which is fine.
Right, but I just
you're not. There again. Both sides of the Carr argument seem to be much more entrenched with it's my way or the highway, and you're wrong and I'm right.
Right.
But in this situation, yeah, you heard from Gruden there on Carr. But again, the question I ask is, how much of that does Gruden? How much of it is Gruden responsible for? Because on Sunday, again, I felt like, why weren't you being aggressive with the play calling? Why were you moving slow at times when the clock was ticking down and you were behind? Why wasn't there a sense of urgency? Now, some people will blame that on Carr. Yes, a little bit, but overall, the sense of urgency wasn't there, and that I have to put on the coach.
And that's been another headline for the season, kind of the questionable play calling and maybe Gruden playing not to lose, right? We've seen that a lot this season, and it's all part of the growing pains, for me anyways. Obviously, if we only expected a 6-win season, and they're coming out and blowing out expectations halfway through with 6 wins already, then you start to see them settle in, and that long road trip, we're not making any excuses. But there was a lot of factors, a lot of distractions going into the season.
With a young team, with a depleted team.
Right.
And no matter, everybody doesn't want to talk about it, but the Antonio Brown thing killed them.
Yeah.
They put they put all their chips in the pot and said, we're going in on Antonio Brown. And they had bupkis in their hand. They had nothing, right?
Yeah.
So that came back to haunt them from an offensive standpoint. And that's on the coaching. That's on John Gruden, who went out and wanted to acquire him, clearly. So to me, it's a shared responsibility, and I know people want to focus on one person, one thing, and they're going to do it, Chaz, right?
Yeah.
But to me, no, the coach has responsibility. Now, Gruden in every press conference says, that's on me.
Yeah.
But I don't get the sense that he means it.
Well,
or that he does anything about it because he doesn't change much.
He's got a 10-year contract, so that means he's got a 10-year plan.
That's right. So he's not in any big hurry.
He's not in a big hurry to,
but that, but to me, that's part of the equation here. And we're going to go to a break here in about a minute. And when we do come back, we're going to talk more about Derek Carr and get into that discussion a little more. We're not haters. We're not, as they call them on Twitter, stans.
No.
We're not.
We're objective.
We're trying to be objective here and give you both sides of things, because I think there is two sides of the story, and one where I fall in the middle on it, and I'll tell you what we think about that overall. Also, later in the show, we'll talk about the Raiders' discipline. The penalties this year killed them. It was massive, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, we'll end the show with a lot of positives and talk about what this team was able to accomplish, what its draft class was able to do, and what free agents worked out, and what free agents did not work out. All right, so a lot to talk about here on the Silver and Black tonight. Okay, we're going to step aside. When we come back, Derek Carr is the conversation. Yes, again, you'll either love it or you'll hate it, is my feeling. We'll be somewhere in the middle. You're listening to the Silver and Black tonight here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Sound off with Silver and Black tonight on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back, Silver and Black tonight, as we talk about the Raiders' 2019 season now concluded, and so has the rest of the season. The playoff seedings are set. The draft order is set. We'll talk about that later on as well. Also, on Monday, yesterday, the Raiders signed Richie Incognito to a 2-year extension, $14 million. Money well spent, in my view.
I agree with you. Incognito, again, the Raiders show that foresight that really, vaulted them to the greatness in the early years, taking a chance on a player deemed unworthy by the league and maximizing his last years of production. And, the thing with Incognito, he brings that intimidation element, that swagger, that old Raiders swagger.
Sure. And sometimes for him that has been a negative thing because he's gone over but he stayed a good citizen this year.
Right.
And you got to hope that moves forward for the 2 years. All right, we're going to talk about Derek Carr now, so hold your horses. You're going to don't put us on dartboards yet. But I want to start with this, Chaz. So yesterday I'm looking through the stats from Sunday, and I'm looking through and I'm sitting there saying to myself, okay, where was some turning points, and where did Derek Carr do something that I thought was, that was not good or whatever, besides the Renfro miss. That was just what it was.
Right.
But with 9:50 left in the fourth quarter, the Raiders are 3rd and 16 at the Denver 19-yard line. They're down 16-3. Okay. And they need to go for first down or in fourth down. So Carr drops back, and he throws a 4-yard pass to Derek Carrier. Meanwhile, down the field in the left flat, DeAndre Washington is wide open like a kid.
Yeah.
Waving his hands.
I saw that. We saw that earlier in the season with Jacobs a couple times. The one huge one in London. It didn't really hurt him because they ended up winning the game anyway. But just standing over there doing jumping jacks while Carr's not, really going through his progressions. The only thought process I could really gather from that one is, you know what, they did need a field goal at some point. Obviously, touchdowns are. But, if he's thinking 3rd and 16, you're not going to get all the way anyway. Let's just get a little bit closer, make it an easier field goal. He had already missed a couple of field goals. So
right, which is, in my view, why he's a good quarterback and not
a great quarterback.
Because
I agree, because the great quarterback's going to try and, get you that first down, get you that touchdown, make a play. But also he doesn't want to make a mistake.
No, yeah, you don't want to make a mistake. But sometimes not wanting to make a mistake makes you too careful.
It does, and he's playing it too safe.
And to me, that's part of the issue is, a lot of times, and this is my criticism of Derek Carr, because he is not a perfect being, guys. You can criticize him without hating him, without calling him personal names, which I think is ridiculous. Fans calling him all kinds of expletives. Come on. Anyway,
they don't do that.
So that's my point, though, is he oftentimes will take the easy play or the safe play. In the NFL, we saw on Sunday night, later that night, when the Seahawks lost to San Francisco. A good example, Russell Wilson will try to make plays that have some risk associated with it.
Sure.
Now, yes, you're down 16-3. If you turn the ball over there, it's a bad thing. But you need to try to step up, elevate your team, and make a play in a big spot. And I think that's an example of a time when he did not.
Yeah, okay, so you say he's a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. I mean, how many elite quarterbacks are there in the league? 5? Okay, you mentioned Russell Wilson, right?
6.
Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes,
Deshaun
Drew Brees.
Watson.
I'm not putting Deshaun Watson or Jimmy Garoppolo up there. Tannehill had a nice half a season. I'm not sure I can put Rodgers up there anymore. He's kind of on the steady decline. So, okay, for me, there's 4 elite quarterbacks. Yeah, Jackson, Mahomes, Brees, Wilson. And then what? You got maybe 10 solid ones after that, and the Raiders have one of those 10. So what's wrong with having a top 12 quarterback that puts up consistent numbers every season and doesn't make mistakes on or off the field?
Well, no,
that's key.
I disagree with that.
And he's a respected leader in the locker room.
He made lots of mistakes last year. This year he improved. He deserves a lot of credit.
Yes.
In the year 2 in Gruden's system, people said he's got to improve, and he did. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to take away a guy's accomplishments from him. That's not what we're about here. We don't want to sit here and put a flag in and say he needs to go and all that crap. We're just having a debate and talking about positives, negatives, improvements that he has made and others that he has not made.
But we're also, you've got to look at the whole picture here. A respected leader in the locker room. He doesn't make those mistakes off the field. He's not going to go out. You know what you're getting with Carr, and that's a steady.
He's not a vocal leader, though. He's a leader. There's no question.
We don't know what goes on in the locker room.
When the locker room's not being vocal.
Well,
that's inside the locker room. What about on the field?
That's a smart thing. You keep your business in house, and that I commend Gruden for that.
But
we're not getting any smoke out of that locker room.
But
which
you're
is a
missing
good
the
thing.
point here. It's not about keeping things in house. I agree with that. But listen to post game comments from Josh Jacobs, and he says things like, "Hey, man, this team, we got to do things. We got to do things better. We got to do.
Yeah.
Some of these guys got to look in the mirror." He says it directly, challenging his team, where Carr does not do that. Now, again, one of my favorite athletes of all time, Tony Gwynn. He was not a guy who's going to call people out either.
Well, he's a great leader by example.
By example, right. Different.
But I go back to that Dennis Green, punching the podium, we let him off the hook kind of thing. and I do want to see that a little bit in the press conferences, but really, is there a need for that? Do I need Gruden kind of getting angry and fired up? I would like a little more explanation why things didn't go this way, why things didn't go that way, what we tried and what didn't work, what did work. And I do want to see a little bit more fire from Derek Carr.
You said that all season. Said that all season.
I'd like to see a little more fire, you're right, from Derek Carr in those press conferences. Instead of just buddying up and talking to everybody and saying, hey, he can't wait to get home and see his family. I'd like to see a little more fire in his belly. You're right.
You're right. But I think the issue is, so on Sunday, 29 of 46, 391 yards. You look at the numbers, and this is my point. It's not just about the numbers. I'm not taking that away from him. He had a good day there. There's no question. But he missed enough plays, and I think made enough key mistakes that I don't think I look at that performance and say that was a great performance.
I think it was a good performance. The touchdown that was called back to Renfro that he landed on the 1 yard line, he looked like he was in to me. And then obviously Ingold said he didn't get in either. Then they're driving down the field again, and Marcel Aitman fumbles. There was a lot of factors that go into it. You can't put that on Carr. He had a good game. I know we're going to argue about it until we're blue in the face.
No, he had a good game. There's no question, but he didn't have a great game.
He didn't have a great game,
and he didn't have a game where at a big moment he stepped up and made a play so that his team would win.
But how many times have we said he hasn't had a great game, and how many times have we said he's had a terrible game?
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
He's always solid right down the middle. And that's all you can ask for.
There's been a couple.
You think there's been more stinkers than there has been?
No, I'm not saying stinkers at all. No, that wouldn't be fair. And I think yesterday they showed moxie by going down and scoring that touchdown late.
Yeah.
But
he's done it all season.
But my problem is you have, and again, the other thing we haven't talked about, the calls. The calls were terrible. It was a 14-point swing on those two calls.
That's right.
And the missed touchdown, I should say. Mm-hmm. So to me, people who want to blame the refs for the game are wrong because you had plenty of opportunities to overcome that. And guess what? Raider fans always complain. They hate us. They're against us. And I don't disagree with that.
It feels like it.
It feels like it, right? Yeah. But you know what? You know that going in. So, yeah, you got to beat two teams. I agree. But you got to beat two teams. You have to score in the third quarter for once.
Play harder. Play smarter.
I mean, yes, it's ridiculous. So Derek Carr had a lot of good moments in that game. He also had the moments that reinforce what those critical of him have said all season long. Okay?
Right.
And I think that's part of the issue. I don't think you're changing any minds either way.
No.
So when people argue about it in a fashion where they're calling each other names, I laugh because that's just not.
Come on.
It doesn't produce anything.
It's entertainment, guys.
Yeah, it's entertainment, and it doesn't lead to any outcomes or any exchange of ideas to say, you know what? I think Derek Carr is the answer, but you're right. He needs to do that better. Like, I don't see that.
Right.
I see it with a few people, mostly media people, but for fans, it's just so polarizing.
Whoa.
It's kind of crazy.
We're talking about Raider fans. This is the most passionate, loyal fans in all of the NFL. So
right, and we have some sound from Derek Carr. We'll get to after the break as we roll along here because I want. There's a couple things that he says in some of these comments that strike me again. And last week I played Dime Store Psychologist with Derek Carr. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. That's easy to do.
And if
every
Derek
week.
Carr heard it, he'd probably laugh at me. So I wasn't thinking that at all.
No.
But nonetheless, I think it's worth some exploration because what he talks about, what he says about the offense, and then what he talks about with a 2-point miss, and when he talks about haters, like he brings it up. The media doesn't bring it up.
Right.
He brings it up, which tells me it's on his mind. You can say the cold wasn't on his mind, but he went to 1-10 yesterday in the cold temperature. Now look, you can laugh it off and say, well, whatever. But the point is, it's fact. So you want to use stats. I'm not talking.
Obviously,
about
those are all road games, and it's hard to win a game on the road. It's a tough division game. So all those stats, they're on the road.
You got to win on the road to.
You have to win on the road to be able to go. Yeah.
But here's the thing: in the few seconds we have left before the break, you can't use stats for Derek Carr to show me that he's a good quarterback, which is fine. And then when you're presented with stats that point out maybe one of his shortcomings, say that it doesn't matter. That's where I find people are hypocritical when it comes to Derek Carr.
And it's bottom line's wins and losses.
Well, it is. And wins and losses, as Vic Tafur said in his story, I thought this was a great line. He said, wins and losses are not a quarterback statistic, right? And he's right, although you do get that just like a pitcher does in baseball, because a pitcher might throw a one-hitter and lose.
Right.
Because they didn't score runs.
And the manager and the coach,
it's crazy. All right, we're gonna finish the conversation on Derek Carr and also get to some Raider discipline issues around the penalties. You're listening to the Silver and Black Tonight here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
When you need inside info on your Raiders, you'll find it here. This is Silver and Black Tonight on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back, Silver and Black Tonight here on Tuesday evening, prime time. It is New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year's.
We hadn't even mentioned that. We got so fired up with the Talk to Raider talk.
Yep.
New Year's Eve, have fun and be safe tonight.
Yep.
Do not drive. There's no reason
closing
to
the strip down. Yep. Get on your Uber.
That's right. That's why at least we don't have to cross the strip to get home.
Nope.
Well, you technically do, but it's on the south end, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, I'd go up.
But have a happy and safe New Year's Eve and a great start to your 2020. If you need a ride, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers has free rides, as does Uber and Lyft. So there is no excuse. Don't get on the roads and kill people. It's terrible. We've seen it too much this holiday season already in Las Vegas, so make sure you're doing it. All right, back to Raider football. Back to the Derek Carr discussion. We'll wind this up a little bit. But I want to play some sound, Chaz, from the postgame on Derek Carr and talking about the offense and struggle, because this one actually bothered me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Here's Derek Carr on the Raiders' offense or lack thereof.
That's the NFL. Every game you can't go out there and score 30, score 21 points and, call it a day. Some days it's tough, especially against that defense. Statistically, they're one of the top defenses in the NFL. Everyone looks at records and things like that. I mean, they just turn the film on. They haven't allowed anything. And so we were fighting. We were moving the ball well. Could have finished in the red zone better, obviously. But it doesn't matter what happens in the NFL. When you have a chance to win the football game, there's no doubt in my mind we're going to win.
So what did you think of that?
Yeah.
Anything there? Did you hear anything?
Well, okay, I know where you're going with it, but yeah, the Raiders are in the bottom third of the league in scoring, but most of that can be attributed to Gruden's kind of ball control, methodical offense. That's people used to give Phil Jackson credit for being a great defensive coach, when really all he did was slow the game down. Limit the other team's possessions, limit their opportunity to score. So Coach Gruden knew that, and with this young, unproven defense, he basically had to do the same thing.
Would you say, and I don't disagree with what you said there, would you say the New England Patriots have a similar offense?
As far as
the same, Tom Brady's made his living. Yes, methodical.
Yes,
not going deep all the time. Short, intermediate passes.
Yeah,
it's very similar.
Heavy. Yeah,
yes, very similar.
Yep.
The Patriots average almost 7 points more a game. Okay, so you look at that. Now, the thing that bothered me about Carr there was he was talking about, hey, you can't go out and score 21 or 31 points, which he's technically right. I mean, the top team in the NFL is the Baltimore Ravens, and they're averaging 33.2.
Yeah,
which is crazy. San Francisco 29, the New Orleans Saints 28.6, Buccaneers 28.6. Right?
Yeah.
So I get what he's saying there. And what he's basically saying is, look, you can't go out every time and put up a ton of numbers. But my problem is they haven't put up numbers all season,
right?
And that's the concern I have with a comment that I get the gist of what he's saying and don't disagree with him. But at the same time, the optics of it, just to me, are not good. And maybe it's the last game of the season, and maybe he's just done with it all, right?
Yeah.
But to me, that was my concern with that comment.
Well, it's a lot of those outdoor games. It's cold weather, rain, snow. There's a lot of factors that go into every game. And this season, it's just not a complete team. It's a rebuild. They're just working on things. And I was pretty happy with the performances. There was a lot of things that can be cleaned up, and I know they'll work on that in the offseason. But as a whole, it's hard. You can't go out and score. You just mentioned the elite of the elite, and the average is 29 a game. So I'm not sure where the Raiders were. I know that they 24 seemed to be their number for a lot of the games this year, and that's going forward. With a lot of unprovens, that's a great start. It's a good foundation for me.
Now that defense has gotten better in Denver, but they are the 21 ranked defense.
Yeah, but you go back to the last 5 games, 6 games. They're top 10, and they're number 1 in red zone defense in the last I think 4 games.
Right.
So there's it's hard to look at the overall season. You need to maybe break it down into quarters or thirds.
No, they've been playing. That's what I'm saying. They've been playing better.
Yeah,
but
you can see that with certain teams. Look at the Atlanta Falcons are a perfect example. What they start 1-7.
Yeah,
and then they reel off a nice.
The Broncos started 0-4.
Yeah, teams.
Yeah, they're a top 10 defense. I mean, there's no
same
question.
with the Raiders. We talked about the deficient. We talked about the and you talked about the distractions to start the season. Starting with Hard Knocks, and then a game in Canada, and then you said the Antonio Brown drama. 6 weeks away from Oakland. The fact that the team is relocating. You've got that hanging over your head all season. They're not just moving to a new stadium. They're moving out of state.
Well,
for this team, so many young players to complete the final, they competed. The final whistle, the final game, just credit to the players and the coaches for holding it all together.
No, there's no question. And I just, looking at the defenses, like you said, Denver's defense, top 10 defense. So Derek Carr was right about that.
Yeah.
They
Chargers last week.
They yield basically just shy of 20 points a game. So the Raiders couldn't get to that point.
Right.
So they obviously Denver but that's it though. How much of it was the defense? How much of it was not executing on offense? Mm-hmm. Obviously, a combination of two. One of the things too that we saw again on Sunday, Chaz, was that ugly monster that we call penalties. The Raiders finish the season 3rd in the league in penalties behind Tampa Bay and Jacksonville. Okay, 128 penalties.
Ouch.
For a combined 1,138 yards. So my question is, why? Now, I know the Raiders traditionally, because the referees hold it against them, that actually has fact. There's fact based on that.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, there's data, I should say, not fact. Data that shows that the Raiders have always been one of the most penalized teams, even when they weren't good.
Right.
And they were terrible, and they weren't mean and nasty like they were in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, I said it before. I used to love the fact that the Raiders led the league in penalties every season. Back in the old days, that was part of the intimidation factor.
Correct.
But, when you have a dominant veteran team that can overcome penalties and turnovers, you really got to limit those mistakes. And for some reason, the Raiders still haven't figured out a way to do that with the penalties. But I guess I'm going to attribute it to the youth, younger players.
That's part of it. There's definitely part of it. Part of it is the NFL sucks with referees. The other part of it, though, concerns me because is it a discipline issue? Because you saw it on offense, you saw it on defense, you saw veterans do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, on Sunday, Josh Morrow, who's had a good season, he's contributed greatly to the Raiders up front, had 2 bad penalties, right?
Right.
In succession, I should say. So to me, that's a concern there, and maybe it is. Maybe it's because you got guys who won't be here. Guys who are a step slow, and so to make up for that, they got to try to cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where it is. So maybe it isn't discipline, and it's just a lack of depth, a lack of roster, and so when they get called for these penalties, it's just because you got 2 second or third string guys in there.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. There's all the above, and just it's one of those stigmas that just sticks with a team. The Raiders have always been known for penalties. I don't know. The Steelers have always been known for that steel curtain defense. The Jets have always been known for being terrible. It's just one of those things, every team's got their stigma, and penalties and Raiders go hand in hand.
Yeah, and we'll see. Again, they're going to have my view is there's going to be a lot of roster turn again.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of roster turn. I don't think there'll be too much. They've got a great foundation.
In certain areas.
Offensive
line, obviously running back, at least 1 deep. And then none at wide receiver, so you're going to see new wide receiver. You'll have Williams come back and Renfro come back, and that'll probably be it.
Right.
And then tight end is fine because Moreau was hurt.
Yeah, going forward, you got those 4 pieces on offense.
Correct. But on defense, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah,
it has to be.
You could almost, you could almost turn over the whole thing. Max Crosby, obviously, and Furl. But there's going to be some question marks. Worley, Carl Joseph, Trayvon Mullen.
Carl Joseph's gone though because I know they didn't exercise the option,
right,
and they could still sign him, but I just
don't
think
waiting.
they will.
I think what they'll do is let him go out and test the market.
Yeah, Worley, and then LaMarcus Joyner. You got to ask yourself. Now, he played out of position. So is it his fault? I don't know. What we saw from him was not enough based on the expectations of him coming from the Rams.
Right. And Trayvon Mullen, what a nice surprise.
Great start.
And I don't know who ordered the code red last week against the Chargers. A lot of friendly fire he got there. But for him to come back, I thought he was going to be out and done, and it might have been one of those lingering. For him to come back and play on Sunday, incredible. So he was really a bright spot on the defense. But you're right. It's for me, and I'm always defense since I don't know why, a kid, whatever it was, I've just loved defense. I love a defensive battle, and I'm always preaching defense wins championships. So for me, obviously I'd like a number 1 wide receiver, but linebacker, nickel, every corner, safety, you name it on that defense, let's get it done.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And if you look at the penalties and the players, again, some of them, the ones that are based on youth, kids like Max Crosby, who, 10 sacks, he had a great season. But players like that, when they make those mistakes, you understand it and you work on it. It's when the veterans make them that you want to be a little bit concerned. But my guess is that's going to be a point of emphasis as they go into off-season and they get into OTAs and workouts in the spring. So we'll see about that. But all right, we are going to take a break here. Before we do, I want to say this. Make sure you join us on Sunday for Silver and Black today from 8 to 10 a.m. Yes, the Raiders season's over, but we don't stop. This Sunday, we're going to do our postseason roundtable. Chaz, Kelly Kreiner, myself, and Mo Moten, our senior NFL columnist, will be with us, so you don't want to miss that. I'll remind you again before the show's over. We're going to step aside, pay some bills. When we come back, we want to finish on a high note. We want to talk about some of the great things that happened this year with this young core and why you have a lot to be optimistic about. You're listening to the Silver and Black tonight here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
From Allen to Zog and all the Davises, Jacksons, and Woodsons in between, we've got your Raiders covered. This is Silver and Black Tonight on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back as we get ready to close out the show, and you get ready to go out and enjoy yourself on New Year's Eve. Safely, as you ring in 2020, along with 400,000 visitors to our city.
It's a good time, man. I love being out there.
It's crazy how many people come into town, and people are like, oh, the draft, that draft's not going to have as many people as New Year's Eve. But my point again is don't drink and drive. Make sure you find a ride. plenty of free options out there, including Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, cab companies, Lyft, and Uber. Do not drink and drive. All right, Chaz, to close this out, we're going to have our big roundtable discussion with me, you, Kelly, and Mo Moten on for an hour next week as part of our show, Silver and Black Today, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. But to close out this show, because I know people are upset at how things ended, but I want to make the point, Chaz, and I know you're with me on this one. Look, fans, observers should not forget that this team almost doubled its win total from 2018. Now, if they had only won 4 or 5 games, which was very realistically possible.
Oh, that's what we said. They could have won 10-6. They could have won 4-12.
Right. So the fact that they won 3 more games, yes. Could they have won 2 or 3 more if they execute on something? Absolutely. But that's what happens when you don't have all the pieces in place yet.
Yeah, it's not a complete team.
Right. And I don't think for a minute, I know coaches, we want to win games, and they do. Like yesterday. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, what games could they have won? And you mentioned some before we went on the air.
Yeah, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville was one of them. But, the other ones, Houston. Kansas City the second time. Now, Kansas City the first time, if they don't have the disastrous quarter.
Right. They were up 10-0 to start the game. But, listen, 6 of their 9 losses were against playoff teams. I mean, obviously 5 of them twice to the Chiefs, but 6 of 9 losses to playoff teams. And they did have a signature win against the Colts and the Bears at the time.
The Bears was a big win.
We thought those were big wins. And you really thought, okay, they're trending in the right direction. And Derek Carr Sunday was saying that in his press conference as well. We're trending in the right direction. And you heard Whimper saying it. And so I completely agree with them 100%. I'm on board with everything that's happening, the rebuild, and the way things are going.
Yeah, and to me, I don't think the goal was ever to make the playoffs this year. I think what surprised everybody and what got everybody maybe a little bit ahead of their skis was going through the gauntlet of the schedule and all the road games and coming out of it at 6-4.
Because everybody's
it was unrealistic.
1-7 when they get done with that, right? And to be 6-4 is just like everybody's mind was blown. But there's a lot of keep going with the positives. Like Vinny Bonsignori said on the Sunday show, the Raiders have 5 picks in the first 90 and $75 million in cap space.
Yes,
Coach Gruden's got a lot of guys calling him on his cell phone. He said they got his number, so they're ready to play for a team on the up.
Yeah, that was absolutely true, and I think that's the draft, what they do in the draft, what they do in free agency. John Gruden said that not only in Sunday's press conference, but he talked about it in Monday's press conference as well. And then executing there is very important. And Mike Mayock has shown he executed pretty well. You can question Furl if you want. He came along at the end of the season. And to me, that's what people can't forget is this team is headed in the right direction. They've made moves. Have they all been the right moves? Absolutely not. There's been massive failures, too, at the feet of John Gruden, but I think it's going in the right direction. 4 wins to 7 wins, what could have been 8 wins almost, so they could have completely doubled it. But I think as Mo, and I'll let him speak on Sunday about it, as he said, this season was, I think, a big litmus test for Derek Carr, and I think in many ways he passed some of that test, and in other ways there's still open questions. Yeah. And so to me that's the only big negative, because I think the other things are easy to fix in acquiring talent.
Well, we talked about that with other, you said it with Phillip Rivers. He's got all these stats. Is he a Hall of Famer? No, he's never won the big game. It's always going to be the question with pretty much everybody, every quarterback, everything, until you win the big one or you start piling up those wins. Are you this next thing? And I said it when the season started. I thought a nice bar for Derek Carr would have been 4,000 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and under 10 interceptions. And
he's almost there, yeah.
He hit the 4,000. He was under 10 interceptions.
No question, man.
So 100.8 passer rating and 70.4 completion percentage.
Yep.
I'm pretty happy with Derek Carr's performance this year. I know he's a lightning rod for all this, as he should be. He's at the center of it.
He's the quarterback, and he's making a lot of money. But here's the thing. And I'll close on the Derek Carr thing until Sunday on this one, which is I want to see, though, I believe that he needs someone to push him, not a coach. I think they will go out and get a quarterback, whether it's free agency or whether it's a young player in the draft, later in the draft. They're not taking anybody in the first round.
Right.
Sorry, guys. So I would like to see that because I'd like to see how he deals with competition.
Well, that's healthy. It's healthy competition. I agree with you.
He's the starter coming to Las Vegas. There's no question. And I think
agree with that,
he will
too.
be the starter.
Unless something crazy, if Andrew Luck has John Gruden's cell phone. Really, that's the only.
that.
That's the only thing I can see. Other than that,
but
what else is there?
But Luck's rights still belong to the Colts, so you can't do. You have to trade.
Can't they?
All right, Chaz, we're already done, man.
No,
what a crazy Tuesday night on New Year's Eve.
That extra hour. Let's stick around.
Gosh. Well, we'll have that extra hour Sunday again. Our end of season roundtable. Chaz, Kelly, myself, and Mo Moten will be here to talk all about it. We're gonna have fun with that one.
It's gonna be a good one. Yeah,
it's gonna be great. So make sure you don't miss that. Make sure you also we simulcast it on video live. So check it out: YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, wherever you watch your video as well. And don't forget to subscribe to this show. It's not a podcast, it's a live radio show, but subscribe to it so that after it plays, you could go listen to it should you have to miss it, and check it out on the radio.com app. For Chaz Osborne, I am Scott Branson, and for our engineer-producer, Mark Bonilla. Thanks, everybody. Have a safe and sane New Year's Eve, and happy 2020. Take care.
Happy New Year, Raider Nation.